Yeah, this is a presentation of a research undertaken under NIKU's CISB project frame and responds to my interest on exploring migration and heritage. Migration and heritage has been evaluated from different angles, mainly through how migrants embrace the heritage of the welcoming societies, or how their heritage, mostly intangible heritage, is performed by them in the welcoming societies. This is the first case. In the first case, we talk about integration and its several modalities. And in the second case, discussions move around issues of community, heritage, identity, and roots. I have approached both angles from a citizenship rights perspective, understanding that the memories of migrants naturalize as new nationals become also the memory of the country, or at least that should be in a multicultural and globalized society. The case study that I have analyzed regards the traumatic memories of exile and forced migration. Western culture has a long tradition of commemorating or collective traumatic events, specifically those caused by wars. Exile or forced migration have been also memorialized in Europe. This is the image of the Jewish children escaping from the Second World War, or images of famine in Ireland, or the Spanish Republican exile. But hardly any monument is recalling the exile memories of the new Europeans, those established in our countries due to war or traumatic events in their own countries. Except maybe the sea flower actually here in Norway, memorializing the Vietnamese boat people. What I will introduce here is a grassroots process of using street names to commemorate exile. In what technically is in memory studies, it's called memory work. It refers to the array of creative or sociopolitical processes that build the capacity to a place to be remembered differently in the public eye, especially by opening up opportunities of lay people to claim to a sense of belonging and through the place. Street names are particularly street naming had been using beyond the simple act of giving a name to a place. Naming is a political act. What is name? What name is given? Who has the right to name? And when and why streets names change? I will not go into detail into the politics of street names because there is a long literature in that. Also because most of you are aware of the polemic surrounding George Floyd murder and the Black Lives Matter movement, not only typing down monuments, but calling to rename streets dedicated to colonial heroes. The polemics show that actually street names act as a low-profile commemoration places. The names are not for free. But I will focus on a similar process happened to Salvador Allende in Barcelona. Street names after Salvador Allende exist in many cities around the world. What makes the case in Barcelona different is that it comes with a commemoration process that has been performed during the last 40 years, every 11th of September, and agglutinates different layers of significance to the Chilean and Catalan community, which makes the square a civic memory place in relation to exile and human rights. To understand the phenomena, we may need to look back to the history of both Chile in 1973 and to Spain in 1936. This is a very short summary of what has happened in both countries and how democracy was hit by a military coup d'etat and replaced by a fascist regimes established for decades and following by state terror and human rights atrocities. At different moments, democracy was restituted and the country followed completely different restitutive justice process, especially in Chile, and quite absent in Spain, at least until 2007. I'm not saying that there is a parallelism in both countries, in the history of the countries and in the dictatorship, but I will like to show that the citizens of both countries have a similar cultural traumatic memories in relation to the recent past and the faith of the democracy. These are the memories that emerge and merge every 11th of September in Salvador Allende Square in Barcelona. Before going back to Allende Square process in Barcelona, let's have a look to Barcelona City Council mindset in relation to street names and the use of historic landmarking as a citizen's creation process of identity. Here I create a very short summary of street naming in Barcelona, which is not a new and unusual process there as in other cities. Actually, one can follow the socio-political local history of any city if one can read the meaning of the names and the reasons of changing. The particulars in Barcelona is that street name follows a semi-participative process. New names could be suggested to the city hall and renaming also. This process has opened a public dialogue in relation to different topics. In the 80s, it became changes in names from fascist names into democratic names, from Spanish names to Catalan names. But today it's also a re-evaluation about names that refer to Spanish Inquisition, names related to colonialism, names in relation to working class women or Roma population in the city, but also in terms of democracy and human rights. What we have today is among quite a local names. We have also names related to street names related to Martin Luther King, Anne Frank, Soweto, Red Cross, Edmund Hillary, John Lennon, Jane Addams, March the 8th, Teresa of Calcutta, International Amnesty, The Little Prince, or Karl Marx. It could be argued that since 1980s, the street naming in Barcelona has not only become a political act as elsewhere, but constitutes a process of remembering and commemorating historic events and personalities that directly matter to its inhabitants, transforming the city street names in a potential place of public remembrance. In this process is what Allende Square took place. Since the 80s, a group of Chilean refugees have gathered every 11th of September in a square in a popular neighborhood to remember the death of Allende and the end of democracy in Chile. Without getting into how administrative this goes, but they asked the municipality to have that street name, and it was accepted in '84. The petition make the place a memory place, because since then there is a Remembrance Day in the square organized by the Chilean organization, but also together with local neighborhood associations. The event works at different layers of memory. It is a tribute to the victims, to their political persecution, and this is very accepted and sort of works as an alleviating healing process for those who had suffered and participate in the events. It reinforces also the sense of community among Chileans in exile, not only in Spain, but welcoming other Chileans in exile in Europe, but also for second generations of Chileans. The healing process for those who had suffered political persecution and because of dictatorships, it also calls for locals. So there is a sort of group belonging and a mirror effect among the locals who are not Chileans but have that process experience. The memories also work to enhance communal life, especially in terms of togetherness, because it goes to the memory of a past political project in terms of democracy. As Keith has mentioned, this is an act of remembering that people evoke the notion of belonging as a social relationship. And here, the political memories construct a belonging of a communal standing, but also of a communal project for the future. Salvador Allende in Barcelona there operates as a memory work in relation to the Chileans, function both as a mourning practice in relation to long-term unsolved traumatic events of political nature in terms of torture, exile, and also as a vindication of interrupted democratic project. And the same happens to non-Chilean locals who had similar cultural traumatic experience in the past. This transition of memories happens because the heritage narrative that the square of Allende and the events every 11th of September there is not related to nationalist memories or nationalist calls of Chilean or Chileanness, but it's related to human rights and democracy. So the square becomes a site of memory with these layers that works for different stakeholders. What a reflection on that process I would like is that a street naming could be used to redefine and reinforce civic memories to help to foster social belonging, especially between migrants and especially for forced migration and to people with traumatic events in their memories to make them belonging to the new city. Also, the process of street naming to participative process will be also help to new citizens to become part of the city. Thanks.